Vengeance Unveiled, Secrets and Lives. I told a lie against my stepmother, and that lie did not just cost her her marriage to my dad. They also had a messy divorce. My dad is an asshole. I know that's just a weird thing to say about one's father, but it is the truth. My dad is an asshole. I love him to pieces. In fact, if I ever had a gun to my head and I'm asked to choose between either of my parents, I'd choose my dad. I'm not just saying this. At some point in my life, I had to decide whether to live with my dad and his wife, whom I absolutely hated, and my mom and her old wealthy boyfriend, and guess what? I chose to live with my dad. So yes, I do love my dad. I am a daddy's girl through, and I'd choose him to be my dad again if there is a life after this one and I'm given the chance to choose. As much as I love him, though, I am not oblivious to the fact that dad is a dick. He was a dick to a large number of women, my mom including. He did them dirty, but he interestingly never got any sort of punishment for him. That guy was always lucky. He managed to charm his way out of everything, and why not? He was a total cutie. Oh well, we are not here to hear about how my dad was the Don Juan of his time, but I got revenge on my evil stepmother, or stepmonster, as my friends and I would call her. My laughing and sometimes even crying. The stepmonster knew all that was going on with my parents. She knew my dad's continued infidelity, hurt my mother, and she knew my mother had only her to rant to. When my mom informed me that her best friend, whom she referred to as my auntie, was coming over to town, I was excited, but only because my mom presented the news to me as a good thing. Since my mom was smiling, 12-year-old me took that as great news. The step monster had been offered a job as the principal of a school in our town. My mom had been so excited about it that she offered her our guest house until her friend was able to find a place that she liked enough to rent. The guest house was next to the main building, but the kitchen had a door that led to our guest house. It was a cool place, and my friends and I used to hang out there all the time. We would even take naps in the guest house. Mom was mad about that, especially since we would get there and make a mess. But my dad would roll his eyes and ask her to let us be. "Come on, they are warming the place up," he'd say to her. My dad and mom's best friend started fooling and sneaking around not long after she moved into our guest house. The step monster was a beautiful woman and daddy is incredibly handsome. The two of them soon decided that theirs was a match made in heaven. My mom suspected that my dad was cheating on her, but she did not know whom she was cheating with. Her best really know what it'd be yet. Her best friend cut in. "I know it's going to be a boy," my mom said, adding that my dad would go crazy with excitement if she had a boy. His dad was never there for him. He'd want nothing more than to have a son that he can make up for his dad's shortcomings. My mom rambled on. I remember noticing my stepmom grimace faintly. She was almost rolling her eyes. "Mommy, you're pregnant." I was excited about my mom's pregnancy. I once heard her tell my dad's mother that she badly wanted a sibling for me. My grandmother had in turn warned her to be sure she wants to have another child by my dad before having another child. He can't keep cheating on me if he's got enough children on his hands to keep him busy. My mom had said, "Just make sure you're certain that this is the person you want to spend the rest of your life with before having any more children." My grandmother knew my dad well, and she knew my mom too. My parents were together for years, so my grandmother had witnessed all of their quarrels. My mom looked pale, darker, and tired, and she told me often that it was because the baby was overstretching her. It was more than that, though. She was unhappy in her relationship with my dad. For her forgiveness. His relationship with my stepmother, however, was different. He admitted that he was wrong and he never tried to justify it. He just agreed and moved out. Shortly after, my stepmother moved out of the guest room too, and before long, my mom found out from her cousin that they were living together. My pregnant mother was so devastated by the betrayal that she had a miscarriage. She was ill for months. She could barely do anything without the help of her sister and me. We were miserable. I missed what our family looked like. I missed my dad driving in every evening, and I missed my mom's cooking and her smile. Most of all, I missed the relationship that I never had with my baby brother. I had looked forward to having a sibling. As an only child, all I ever wanted was a sibling, and my stepmother had ruined that for me. I made a promise to myself to get back at her in whatever I could and in the future. I got the chance too. It isn't just because my dad is an unrepentant cheat that I called him an asshole. My dad isn't just a cheat, he also was repulsed by the faintest idea that any woman could be cheating on him. After my dad married my stepmother, he had an affair and the other woman got pregnant by him. My dad was so possessive that he wanted to continue his affair with the other woman while preventing her from seeing other men. He also would not leave my stepmother. He always wanted to have his cake and eat it, and many times he did just that. Daddy had two children with other women whilst still married to her, but that was not enough revenge for me. My stepmother was enamored by my dad. She knew he could leave her at will and find someone younger and better looking, and she dreaded that happening. My dad, on his part, had a hard time trusting women. That was to be expected since he was hardly trustworthy himself. He would always police my stepmother. He worried whenever she returned late from school. When I lived with my dad, I attended the school where my stepmother was the principal. In my senior year, the school employed a new vice principal. He was a middle-aged man, but he was also very handsome. The teachers in school were crazy about him. That was obvious. When my friends started to tell me about how all the teachers in school liked the new vice principal, I knew that was my chance to strike. I was finally given the chance to get revenge on my stepmother for what she did to my family. To start with, I mentioned to my dad that we had a cute vice principal in school, and all the teachers were in love with him. I also mentioned that he was divorced. I made sure to rub that in properly, just so that my dad's curiosity and insecurity were heightened. Naturally, my stepmother and the vice principal were quite tight since they worked together and went to school functions together. I started to notice how uncomfortable my dad got at school functions. decided then to take it upon herself to ensure that her relationship with my dad worked out. When she made him propose to her, and he eventually married her after postponing their wedding for months, she felt she'd won. She gloated about it on social media and in every gathering that required her to speak, even when she was not asked to speak about marriage. She had given up everything for my dad, and even when she ought to have left, she stayed just to prove to everyone that they were wrong. Truly, her marriage to my dad would have ended in less than a year, but she chose to look away, and that was the only thing that kept them going. My second step to ruining their marriage was starting a rumor in school that someone saw the principal and vice principal making out in the principal's office. I confided in a junior about it, and she passed it on. I knew she would because that was how kids were in school anyway. She told everyone, and everyone told everyone. Before long, people started telling their parents, and even teachers were gossiping about it. Him for believing me and not trusting her. "Can't you see that she's trying to ruin our marriage?" she screamed. "My daughter has lived with us for years. She didn't try to ruin our marriage then. Why would she try to ruin it now?" My stepmother was pissed. She cried and fumed. Eventually, my dad told her to quit her job. It was the only way he could be comfortable. He did not want her around the vice principal. He threatened to leave her, and she told him to go to hell. When my dad moved out, I moved out too and went to live with my friend for the rest of the semester. My dad was very insistent on getting a divorce, and my stepmother was mad too. She was already angry about many things in their marriage, and she poured it out on him. They had a very messy divorce, and both are still hurting from that to this day. I never told anyone that it was a lie, not even my mom, who had asked me on many occasions if I really did see my stepmother and the vice principal together.